Welcome back to Bourbon Barrel Talk. I'm your host, Scott Minton. Today we are back in the Brock Bourbon Bar, and we are in our year in review 2022. That rhymes. Damn, I'm a poet and I didn't know it.
Bring it on.
So we're going to review a couple of bottles. Not really as much review as we're just going to talk about them as we drink them, because I'm sure we'll take a sip and we'll be like, oh my God, that's great. But what are we sipping on today, Mr. John?
So the first one is a bottle that I brought over from Copper and Kings in Louisville, Kentucky. It is an apple brandy that's been double distilled and finished in a maple barrel.
Apple brandy finished in maple.
124 proof, so it's
Ding,
got
ding,
a
ding.
little bit of a
Stank on it.
lovely stank.
There we go. And the next one is the
Next
Frenchman.
one is a Frenchman, Lucky 7 Distillers.
Oui.
Curators of fine spirits, it says on the bottle. The bottle's beautiful. Oh my God.
So I love
It's
their
like something out of
Harlequin.
old Vegas.
Yeah,
This
for
is like
sure.
a Fallout New Vegas
Yep.
something that you would loot. Kentucky Bourbon Whiskey at 113 proof, batch number 2.
And it's finished in a French oak.
A French
barrel.
oak in New French oak.
There we
of course.
go. I love it. I love it. So, year in review. We're going to talk about our favorite episodes from 2022. So, does anybody have one that sticks out in their mind just right off the bat? Nick's already got his hand up, like ding, ding, ding.
Well, there is one that I could say, but I'm going to leave it for somebody else. But my personal one was the first time I got to experience the cigar batch, both the rye and regular cigar batch.
That was a good episode. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you had brought us the 2 bottles for the first time here, and we both got to try them the first time. I think it was back in March-ish time frame.
Okay.
Because at that point in time, I've been searching high and low for some of the cigar batches. That's not very many had been released since probably, what was it, September, October of the prior
previous
year.
Yeah.
And it was very tight-lipped for any of the cigar batches coming out. And so we finally got to try some at that episode.
And that was back
Yeah.
when the barrels, I think, were newer.
Oh, they were brand new then. So those were the very
Absolutely.
The
first two
flavors
releases.
were just incredible compared to
Yep.
kind of how they've gone throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely.
100%. John?
I really enjoyed when you came over to the Den of Thieves and you brought the bullets that we did, the flavor.
Okay, the flavor bullets. So we did the Old Forester release.
Old Forester release with the flavored bullets.
Yep. So we did
Yep.
they were 100 proofers, right?
Yes, they were.
And we had maple cherry and the double oak.
Double oak bullet.
Yep.
And it was special because it was, again, the 3 brother-in-laws. It was you. It was kind of when you first started inviting us to do the podcasts. So it was special and it was enjoyable. Although I don't know where the bullets have gone, so I'm still trying to tear the house apart to find them. Carl says he doesn't have them, and I thought he took them.
Carl had them last, and he did what was it? We do Wild Turkey 101 with them.
Yes.
And then he was supposed to give those bullets to either
To
you
me
or Jared.
Yeah, which Jared says he does not have them. So
Listen, Jared doesn't know what he has.
Well, duh.
He didn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. I got a pecker.
The chicken coop doesn't count.
oh,
The roosters do not count.
well, everybody knows about the bird. Bird.
I'm going to let Barbara go next, but before Barbara goes, my favorite episode with Barbara was 5 Rye Barbara. So I don't know what your favorite episode is, Barbara.
Not that I can probably remember
Oh, you
that
definitely ain't
one.
remembering 5 Rye.
What happened in the 5 Rye, Scott?
Oh, dude, so we had a great episode. We had a great conversation.
It
We
was
went through 5
incredible.
different barrel strength ryes.
Yep.
And I brought all these ryes over so Barbara could try them. We all had a great time with it. Nick had a couple of them, but we sat there and we drank through them, had a good conversation. And by the time I was picking up all my stuff, Barbara might have been laying where Nick was and had
Head
no
on
idea.
the table.
Had no idea what she was saying.
where he was.
And of note,
It was lights
these
out.
were Barbara pours
Oh, for
that
sure.
she did both for herself and myself because I had to step
Absolutely.
away for a couple minutes.
Yeah.
And she poured for me these
Monsters.
these monsters, and
decent pours.
I said, I'm not going to get rid of this. I'm not going to let just pour out this alcohol. I'm going to drink
heck no.
Men up, son.
it. Exactly.
We all did.
We all did that night. But yeah, Barbara was lights out. So
I've had so many. I don't know if I can really, pinpoint a specific one. I guess for me, it's more just the overall experience of showing a difference of the female palate and the male palate, and how they correlate together and how they don't correlate together.
I guess I get what you're saying.
I think for me, it's the uniqueness of having a female voice to understand how we can kind of feel with our bourbon or rye versus how the male can flavor.
Yeah, no, I absolutely enjoy the female perspective. Like, I think it's really nice to have you on here for those things. I think the stories go a little long sometimes. Not that I've ever said that or talked about that before.
Never.
I believe you just mentioned that on the previous recording.
Let's see here. My grandmother's apple pie.
That's right. Actually, Nick brought that one up, not me.
He did. That is true. It was Nick who brought that one up the last time.
But, so
Yeah.
I definitely do enjoy the female's perspective. Matter of fact, one of my first set of episodes that I did was like I invited 3 females, like girls that were friends of mine. I went over to one of their houses and I was like, hey, I wanted to introduce them because none of them had barrel strength bourbon.
Ooh.
So I'd walk them through barrel strength bourbon.
Nice.
I took over a hazmat. I took over I took over a Four Roses. I took over an Old Forester. Like, I took over just a nice mix of different barrel strength bourbons. And they're like, oh my God, like, this is so unique. I would have never, like, and it just was really neat to get their perspective because they were bourbon drinkers, but they'd never had hazmat. So,
Okay.
and they'd never had barrel strength. So to
Yeah.
get that perspective and like their mind thought process and how they walked through the tasting notes and what they were getting, it was just really, really nice and refreshing. And I feel like that's been one thing that I've really enjoyed about having you on the show was the fact that you definitely have a different perspective and you tie memories to different things, like more of the warm and fuzzies, whereas I tie things to just like that are immediate thought processes, like memories of chewing a baseball glove or memories of this or that. And you're like, Grandpa's kisses and blah, 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 and all lovey-dovey. And,
The Hallmark memories.
Yeah, the Hallmark memories.
Hallmark. Leave it to me.
So I appreciate that perspective, but, so.
Yeah.
And those instances where it's like you are spot on with us. It's like, okay, this is a universally
unique.
masculine and feminine. We love this
well,
fucking
and I
bourbon.
think that's what's so unique is there are those instances where we all kind of mesh together, but then there's a lot of times what we just don't.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's got a different flavor profile. Everybody has a
Yeah.
different palate, so it makes a really, really unique difference whenever you look at those things.
That's all what you wrote there, Nick.
So I will say for me, it's been really, really hard to decipher what my favorite episode would have been from this year. Like I guess for me, honestly, oddly enough, I really enjoyed the 291 interview.
That one was incredible.
So it was one of those things where, the guys came in, they flew into town, they were here for a totally different reason. They just showed up, and they showed up at your house, by the way, which, like I've said 100 times, I really appreciate you just letting us bombard your place with just randos, that show up at any
that
given time.
particular day, I was at work when you mentioned, oh, hey, by the way, these guys are coming. And I'm looking at my coworkers going, hell, somebody shoot me.
So it's one of those weird things that you just, in my world, I just never know what's going to happen.
No.
Like, and it's been great because Matt's been a great piece of the podcast. Josh has been a great piece of the podcast. Like they've been my brothers from another mother, as far as that stuff goes.
Forget Jared.
Listen, I love all the time I've spent with the guys from the Den of Thieves. I love the Brock family. Like, I love all these dudes. I love everybody. I love y'all. But it's one of those funny things is I've enjoyed so many episodes, but
Yeah.
when I tie back to like my favorite episode, and I think for me, I love interviewing people. I
Okay.
love having that conversation. What makes you unique? What's your story? What got you into bourbon? And all those conversations go back to that genuine first time experience or first time feel. And for that, I felt like Michael just had such a great, aspect of 9/11,
Yeah.
moving to Colorado, taking his family to where he felt like they would be more safe,
yeah.
even though he lost his family as far as being divorced and all those type of things. But now he built this brand and he built
Absolutely.
the still himself out of old camera parts.
The
I mean, just like,
storytelling and the history of his.
Just-
his
so
Yeah.
being able to
line,
pick up
you know.
and grab those things, like that to me is what I cherish the most about doing this. Like that was originally what this was supposed to be about. about, but COVID happened and I had to pivot. So we went to doing more reviews and more of this, and we're still doing interviews, right? But they're fewer and far between. Like,
absolutely.
there was interviews I had lined up with Harlan Wheatley, but I never got to do it. Brown at that time, Sazerac was like, nope, done, COVID, we're not doing anything, but I've still had other interviews since then, but like there were certain things that I'd had lined up. I thought I was almost 100% I had Jackie lined up from Old Forester, gone. But I did multiple shows with Tyler, and Tyler's become a great friend, through the whole process. I talked to him, text him, constantly about Old Forester, what's going on in that world, and that's one of the reasons why I guess I've become such a loyalist for that piece. But for me, I think 291 is probably my favorite episode.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think for me, I wasn't actually a part of being on the microphone for that one. I was more in the background. And it was just unique to hear the humility that he provided, that he was like, you know what? Yeah, I mean, it was great and everything. And just, it was much more down to earth than some of the bigger groups.
So that's another thing I will say about during this process. Other than one particular distillery, I feel like all of them have been really, really forthcoming as far as like how they got into it, why they got involved with it, what's it like, in starting a bootstrap process, that type of thing. Actually, probably two of them. And it wasn't that they were bad interviews. They just had a different perspective than what I thought they would have come to town with. New Riff was one and Boone County was the other.
Okay.
Both of them were still fine interviews. Jay has a wealth of knowledge. New Riff, I mean, just a ton of knowledge, and I really respect Jay. But we had a difference in opinion on certain things, and it was what it was. But
yeah,
it's all good. So I tried this apple brandy. I don't know if anybody else has tried it. I've already started sipping on stuff.
No, I've been listening to the stories.
So Ashley and I went to a few. You asshole! I was in mid sentence. We went a couple weeks ago, and the tour guide had just gotten back from an extended break, so he was excited to be back, and we ended up trying a few more than normally you would try. About 9 different brands.
So who were you there with? I mean, was Brandy didn't do your tour, did he? McDaniel, the actual master distiller there?
No.
Okay.
No, he was not there. They were having a big Christmas party event, so everything like the restaurant and the bar were closed.
Okay.
But I'd never been there before, and it was really neat. You get the experience of it's very small. And so like your tasting room, you're sitting on couches, and it's very like friends level, low key. Which added a different element to a distillery tasting.
Yeah.
But this one was the one that we ended up picking because it was both mine and my wife's favorite.
Yeah. No, it's very apple forward.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of oak to it. I don't get as much, and I know it says maple syrup. I actually, oddly enough, I get more of like just a really sweet, like almost like creme brulee-esque type, like
burnt sugar.
Yeah, burnt sugar, like that burnt brown sugar, burnt sugar flavor on it.
Tiny bit of like a sorghum.
Yeah, I
where
can see
it's
that.
that little bit of that more richer,
charry, molassesy.
Yep.
Sorghum.
Yeah, that's where I was going to segue a little bit. The dark brown sugar that's a little bit heavier on that molasses.
The one thing about brandy is it always drinks so close to proof. Like I rarely get a brandy and I'm like, oh, that's just drinks so light. But like this one, I mean, it doesn't hit 124, but it definitely has some heat to it.
Agreed.
Now here's something that I don't know if you can relate to or not, but sometimes with brandies and certain brandies, kind of the aftertaste that I get after a long period of time after I've taken a drink,
right,
is kind of like that. If you've ever had Novocaine and it start to wear off. That weird feeling that you get and little aftertaste.
A tingle.
Yep.
The tingle. It's almost like what you get when you like Listerine. Like if you Listerine your whole mouth.
Yeah, that I'm more with you, Scott.
But to me, it's the same feeling. Like I just picked up a different because of that tingle and like kind of move around. Like I feel like that's what you're speaking to, like that type of feeling, that numbing as it's kind of coming off, but it's like tingly there.
Yep.
But for me, that's the first thing I thought of was like kid. Like I had to do Listerine, like old school Listerine, not the new weak stuff.
Burn
it's
your
a
mouth.
full palate tingle.
Yes, absolutely, full palate tingle. So it's got a lot of stuff going on there. But I definitely don't really necessarily get any maple in this though. But it's a solid little pour. So all right. So what would you say is the most memorable moment of 2022 for the podcast?
I will say, I'll go ahead and jump in there. I will say that the birthiversary episode, because I got to really experience a different side of a few people who've never been here before. That's been long timers with the podcast. Both Matt and Toby.
Yeah.
I had heard them before on the podcast, but I've never met them before.
Right.
That was the first time that I met them.
Yeah.
It was a great over hour long episode that we recorded for that.
Yeah.
Dude, it was a juggernaut for sure.
It was, but it was a lot of fun.
Yep. Jared, did you have something? I saw you doing the finger signs there.
The 291 episode, I would say, is the most memorable.
Okay,
Because
291.
Yeah.
it was such a wild, just all the stuff they brought and all the stuff the details that they laid out for us about everything, to me, was memorable about it.
Okay.
No,
Yeah, I can get you.
I'm picking up what you're putting down for sure.
Absolutely.
I'm oddly in a similar field with you, Nick. I really enjoyed the birthiversary only because I it's weird. Like, to me, it was more about, like, I brought, like, kind of my OG family with, like, my secondary family, because you guys have kind of become the secondary part of what Bourbon Barrel Talk has become, right? But also there's something about, like, some of the earlier interviews I did in the year. Like, I did, we did an episode with Old Carter. Like, that one was super memorable. And the main reason why is because Pat Heights showed up out of nowhere. Like, the master distiller for Wilderness Trail shows up in the middle of my interview with Old Carter.
Oh, wow.
And I'm sitting there, and I met Pat before, and we've had great conversations. I love Pat to death. But, like, the fact that I'm sitting here interviewing Mark and Sherry Carter, and there's at the door at the Old Carter's distillery, where their bottling room is. And they're like, well, who the hell's that? So we open the door, and Pat Heiss literally walks in from Wilderness Trail. Like,
cool.
And we sit down and we do like another 45 minutes with Pat on the podcast. So it's like one of those, like I said, I never know what's going to happen. Like, and it's funny because I would have never dreamt in a million years that's what this would have become. Like, I've had all these great interviews, I've had all these great conversations, and then, like I said, like, stuff happens. Like, literally, Matt calls me out of the blue whenever I start texting you guys, dude, by the way, the dudes from 291 are showing up today. Like, they're coming to your house.
Yeah.
I'm like, I hope that's okay. I didn't even ask. Like, one of those type of things.
I literally was sitting at work going, I have got to Google them and get at least a broad idea of who the heck I'm going to be seeing and introducing myself to.
And basically, she was like going, what?
The hell?
Who's coming?
Yeah.
Where?
So the funny thing is, like, I knew of 291 only because one of my good friends, whenever I first really, really got into bourbon, was a guy named Ryan Easterly. And Ryan was a super cool dude that he ran, I want to say it was like Red Tavern or something. It was one of the really, really nice, like, steak and, like, restaurants, burgers, and stuff like that at 4th Street Live. It was like right before Gordon Biersch and all that came in.
Yep.
But it was in there. And I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me for some. But it was Red something.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, but holy crap, I can't think of it either.
But anyway, so I knew Ryan, and Ryan had just started working for them at 291, and I was like, "Oh, so you work for these guys?" And he's like, "Yeah, blah blah blah." And literally, like, the week before they came to town, he's like, "They're coming into town." I'm like, oh, that's really cool. He's like, well, they're going to go and do a bunch of, like, releases, do some tastings, things like that. And they're going to go to, like, random liquor stores and sign bottles, just to have fun. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I need to interview them one day. I literally said this to Ryan. He's like, yeah, maybe, I can get you in touch with them. Like, 3 days later, Matt calls me and says, boom, like,
they're in
they're here,
town.
they're coming. Like, and I'm like, okay, let's do it. So it's just one of those weird things. You just really know you never really know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So.
Honestly, the best part for me is just getting to be involved in the process. Like, I didn't anticipate you inviting us on board, and then it just kind of happened, and it's become something that me and Jared and Carl really enjoy doing. And then we experience the hospitality, you guys and everyone else. I think that's the best part about bourbon. It's learning the history, finding incredible bourbons to drink, and then sharing that with good people, experiencing the hospitality of good people. That was a pleasant surprise for 2022.
Yeah, and the fellowship is always, to me, that's what really bourbon's all about anyway. I mean, and heck, it not part of the podcast, but probably one of my other favorite parts of this year, especially, was being able to enjoy your all's first barrel picks. Like literally.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, Nick got to go on the Yellowstone and Lux Row pick with me, and you got to go to the Peerless pick. You know, just being able to go on those picks and do those things. It's just it to me that's fun. Like I enjoy being able to enjoy things with people that haven't necessarily had that experience before. It just makes a big difference.
I still need to do a barrel pick.
I know we're going to get you out on one.
You're not going to survive a barrel pick.
Well, no, but I still want to go.
The first pick we'll have to take Barbara. We'll have to take her to like Spirits of French Lick or Starlight, where they just crack open like 15 barrels, and Barbara's just done.
Yeah,
Done.
We'll need
Lights
a
out.
wheelbarrow.
The wheel Barbara.
Right?
Scott, you're like the
I have
Professor
my
X of the
moments.
bourbon industry.
I guess. I don't know.
The mentor, the teacher.
Is that because I'm bald?
Nah.
I don't know.
So, all right, the Frenchman. What do we got here? The Frenchman. Oui, oui, bonjour. Bonjour, bonjour, bonjour.
A very
Buongiorno's Italian.
a very smooth and even nose.
They say bonjour in the
Bonjour.
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 You're trying to
Buongiorno would be
that-
Italian.
That's what you said.
I didn't say buongiorno.
Yes, you did.
You did.
When you're editing this, maybe.
If I say bonjour, it'll be funny. That'd be funny. I'm pretty sure I said bonjour. I don't think I said buongiorno, but everybody's saying I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
Cabinet or cabin?
You know what? I can edit it to make it say that I'm right. So I won't, but I could.
You do have
he has that power.
you have editing power to make us all sound like assholes.
I have creative license. So what do we got here on the Frenchman, man? It's definitely French oak. I mean,
It is. It's very even. It's not sharp. Very smooth nose.
very smooth.
getting a little bit of caramel. There's not a whole lot of apple or banana or any kind of fruit on this, though. You may getting like maybe just a touch of cherry.
That's what I say. Cherry. There's a little sweetness there, a little fruit sweetness. I'm not sure if it's cherry, but it smells that way.
Don't add water to it.
Don't add water. Oh, did you already do that once? Oh.
Okay, good to know.
It's got more of a cherry juice than I feel like it is a cherry.
Huh.
I can understand where you're coming from, John. Yeah.
So one of the first interviews of this year might have been with the guys from Lucky 7. I'd have to go back and look at my episode list to see where it came in at. But I met them at Doc Crow's.
Oh, I remember hearing about that. Yes. Yeah.
Where are they based out of, Scott?
So one of them was in California, the other one was Chicago. But they are old, like, roomies, really good friends, that type of thing. And I think they're not married to sisters or cousins, but like people that were like basically sisters or something. Like they're really like close tied, I think, through their wives and stuff. Yeah, and they became really, really good friends or whatever.
Interesting.
But I'd have to go back and listen to the episode. I really can't remember 100% on that piece.
Let's see here.
Jared's got notes. He's picking up.
Hold on.
It does have kind of a medicinal
It does.
after finish.
Yeah, that French oak is definitely, it's woody. It's definitely got some woodiness to it. It's real earthy. It's almost like, and I've never gotten this on bourbon, but it's weird. It's almost like there's almost that medicinal quality like that you would get, or woody medicinal quality, like almost from like a mushroom pizza or something. Like,
See,
but not in pizza per se, but like.
Well,
Not like a fungus.
No,
it's more of
the.
hold on. It's more of the floral fungi.
Yeah, like like florally fungi, but like almost like, you know how like when you smell like a mushroom and it's got like a floral note, like almost like a really, really earthy floral note.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, like that's what I'm kind of getting.
Yeah,
and it's coming through really on the taste
earthy.
on kind of like what I would say the rear, like mid to back.
Right. Almost where the tongue kind
Slides into your throat.
of. Yep. Right there.
Yep.
Oh, John, shush.
I really hate it when Barbara is right there with me. Like mentally, we're connected on this one for some reason. I don't get it.
No, but I love this one.
February 20th was the release of the Lucky 7 interview.
Really?
With Doc Cruz.
So I was right. It was at the very, very beginning of this year. That's funny. So see, that's why we like Jared. He knows how to Google.
Well, he was showing it to me, and I was trying to figure out the connection of the family
Conversation.
time thing. And what he was trying to show me was the stupid date.
It's the little things in life.
Right. I was going more depth
Yeah.
than the surface.
She was trying to read, like, did I have some crazy notes about them on there? Because that's what we were
Right.
talking about. I'm picking up what you're butting down. Jared was just simply trying to show you a date. Mm-hmm. So.
What was everyone's best moment of the year and most difficult moment of the year.
On the podcast or just in general?
In general. I
In
think.
general? Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Fudge.
I mean, oh, man. Best moment of the year, honestly, was probably I had a really good vacation with my kids this summer, and I just kind of know that like it's probably the last one I'm gonna have that, and not per se like with my kids, but like as them being kids. Like
Yeah.
my oldest is, a sophomore in college. My youngest is
okay.
kind of a junior in high school. Like, I think it's my last real, like, summer vacation with them is, like, being still my kids, like, my babies. That's probably the best moment I had. Because we went to Disney World. We had a great time. We spent
cool.
5 or 6 days there. And that's that's a place they love. Like, I like Disney. Like, I enjoy it. But they love it. And watching that love that they have for that and being able to go through that piece that's probably the highlight of my year, honestly, and my wife loves it there too. Low light is going to be, it's easy. I mean, my brother passing, earlier this year, I mean, that it just came as such a massive shock. You don't expect to lose anybody at 51. And I know that, Josh, he just lost his grandpa. And I know he's heart wrenched and torn up about that, and God love him. And I know, there's other things out there, but I think those would be my highlight and probably my low light of the year. So
Let's raise a glass to your brother, to Josh's
Grandpa Pascal, yep.
and to my grandma Ernstberger, who will probably not be with us more than a day or two from now.
Cheers,
And
salute.
to
Cheers
all
to
of
wonderful
the
people.
ones that we have lost.
Yeah, 100%. Cheers.
Cheers. Slancha. Nick, best and worst.
The funny thing is it's the same thing. We had planned a trip for a cruise for family, both Barbara, her side of the our side of the family, and then her sisters. And originally it was, the cruise, it was great, it was awesome. But the day before they were supposed to fly out, we got a notice that Delta had canceled the flight and reset it for a later time. But unfortunately, that time would have had them and the kids coming after the boat is already gone, left the dock.
Left the port.
So they had to, me and my brother-in-law, my wife's sister's husband, jumped in a car. We had already planned on jumping on a car because we wanted to bring back a lot of souvenirs.
Bourbon, souvenirs.
Well, alcohol,
No,
bourbon,
just
whatever.
alcohol
or-
in general.
or-
It's not necessarily bourbon.
but souvenirs on the way back, and we knew that was in trying to get something on a flight is very expensive. But at the point in time, we were like we're just going to drive. Wives and kids, we're going to jump on the plane. They're going to come down.
Basically, what was going on was we wanted the 2 youngest kids to finally have their first flight. The 2 oldest ones on their first cruise had their first flight. So we were attempting to do the same with the 2 younger ones. And obviously it came back and bit us hard in the ass.
So basically, we were already probably about 3 to 4 hours down the road, already headed that way down to Galveston, Texas, from Louisville, Kentucky. And so they end up having to, sorry, what I should say is that we grabbed most of the luggage.
Yep.
Because we didn't want to have them or the kids worry about like carry-ons or really like checking bags so that they could worry about much luggage. So we had most everything.
So we did have, rolling luggage for the 2 youngest kids for sure, because we wanted them to have the idea of dragging luggage through an airport. Because that's a whole part of flying is knowing you have to remember your luggage, you have to get it, you have to go from there and keep going. And it was a very, 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 very stressful couple of hours when we figured out the flights weren't going to happen.
And so they had to rush, cram 4 kids and 2 adults into a car and start driving. And they were working on catching up with us. And the problem was that as we got closer and closer to our place where we had already planned on stopping, there were no hotels available. and we made it to Shreveport. There's graduation weekend. There was some other couple events happening in the area, and there was almost no hotels. So we ended up spending probably about a half hour to an hour stopping at different places, calling places, trying to find some place to get just a hotel room for that night. Because originally we just planned on driving all the way straight through because it was just us two.
Two men.
But the girls and the kids weren't going to be able to do that. So we just kind of said, all right. And then finally, by the grace of God, we talked to somebody, and then they says, oh, yeah, one of our affiliates just had 2 cancellations.
And we're like, we'll take them.
And we said, we'll take them. Well, granted, it was the last 2 ones, and so they always do that markup price for the last 2 hotel rooms. And so
you're lucky it wasn't a Roach Motel.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
It was not a Roach Motel.
Thank God it was not.
What are these red specks on the sheets?
Nice.
You're about to say, I'm not going to drop Knights Inn. Have you ever seen one of those?
Yeah. I've stayed in a Knights Inn before in a softball tournament.
I'm pretty sure Nick has too in Ashland, Kentucky.
No, we were about to until your parents went in to look at it, and they said, no.
That's right. We were
no, we're out of here.
You're right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, I remember that one. But yeah, they walked in, they said bleep no, and walked out.
But yeah, no, that part of the cruise was very, very difficult. As much as I love my twin sister, she and I can definitely butt heads. And by the time
You wouldn't have thought, huh?
by the time we
Like in
finally,
the womb or outside?
All the above.
all the above, dude, all the above. So by the time we finally made it to port and was ready to board the boat, I'm like, God help me, please tell me the bar is open. I
Tell me the bar is open.
the bar to be open.
For sure.
And thankfully the bar was open. So I didn't completely kill my sister that time.
Gotcha.
So, tying in with Nick on, kind of the worst and the best. At the same time, the best was that whole cruise. So our youngest child is almost 7 and has since a very, very young age, about the time he could know how to say the word turtle, has loved turtles.
Crush.
Just turtles in general.
No, I'm talking about, did you Crush from Nemo?
I know exactly what you're
No.
talking about, but
The
no.
actors at Disney do a great job.
Oh, dude, they did a
Absolutely.
fantastic job.
Yeah.
So and everybody's like, oh, so he likes the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm like, no, he likes sea turtles, people. Sea turtles. The actual sea turtles. So one of the best things we did on this cruise was part of our trip was to go to Grand Cayman. And they have a turtle center. And it has turtles from hatchlings right out of the eggs to, these 300-pound giant turtles. And he got to experience every little bit of it.
And they also had optional, little wading pools where you
Yes.
could walk and sit with, less than a yearlings.
And you could pet
turtles
them.
and pet them in, this little small wading pool.
Like, legit, he was in hog heaven. He didn't know.
He was in turtle heaven.
Absolutely, yes. Turtle heaven. He didn't know what to do with himself. Ironically enough, that was the one spot I figured for sure he would be like, hey, Mom, can we take one home? And ironically enough, he never asked that.
Scott, don't take this the wrong way, but thank God my wife doesn't listen to this podcast.
Okay.
Because if she heard that, she'd
Wanna go?
Immediately.
So Jared, while you're on mic real quick right here.
Yeah.
Best and worst moment of the year.
Worst moment of the year was I got married. No, just kidding.
Oh, you better be
It's probably your
careful.
best
about
and your
that.
worst, honestly. I would have guessed that would have been my best and worst.
I think there's going to be a payout or some snippets are going to be texted to your wife.
Absolutely.
No, best moment of the year was definitely getting married. I love my wife, even though she's a royal pain in the butt, and I'm a royal pain in her butt, not in a weird way.
That's the whole point of being married.
And yes, best part of the year was getting married and the honeymoon, all that jazz. It was great. All the planning sucked.
Volleyball.
Volleyball, tequila.
volleyball, was
Tequila
definitely
volleyball.
the best.
Do you like tequila for volleyball? And getting puked on and peed.
Good
I'm so
Lord.
naked and fucked up. Wish that I did not drink at all.
No, wish I didn't have margaritas.
Right.
I'm about to say that was very close, unless you would have said you were in a bathrobe.
Damn it.
Hey, you messed that up. That
Oh,
was
God,
great up
God.
until
all I'm saying is I'm really glad that I got off that call before I saw anything else.
that was all prior to that call.
Prior.
Sorry, I stuttered.
Somebody's had a lot to
I
drink.
took a big fucking bullet for you guys on that
You're
one.
welcome. You can see these. Never mind. Worst moment of the year was I had to put my cat down. So
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I know it.
Big fluffy.
It. Some people think it's nothing and but whatnot. But for me, it was tough. It was very tough for my dad and everything. So
Gotcha.
It's
but
the
yeah.
people that have never had pets that think that it's the hardest,
Dang.
or it's stupid. It's those that have had pets that have lost their pets that understand. Pets are a whole different ball game. They do become part of your family. Through the years I've had, oh goodness gracious, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cats, 3 dogs.
Voiceover.
Is this that barbarism that you were talking
Oh, yeah.
about?
Yes.
Something like that.
Yes.
Fair enough. So I'll say 2022 has definitely been a good year.
Do I not
It's
get
had
to
its had its
talk
highlights.
Ooh.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yes.
thought you already went. Did you
No.
not? My
Damn.
bad. My
We
bad.
missed him.
I'll just turn my
Highest
mic
and
off.
low.
Bye,
Highest and low. I
everyone.
thought you already
No.
said high and low. You said you lost
No,
your.
that was no.
Oh, we
just-
did. We
were
just
doing the
raised the
toast
grass.
for-
We
That's
were
right.
doing
We
the
raised the
toast.
grass.
that have passed and are passing.
Gotcha. All right.
It's kind of funny. I am very similar to Jared over here. This was a year of weddings for my family, not just for Jared, who's my little brother, but also my little sister Leah got married, and
Ireland.
we
I thought you
took
were calling
50
Jared his
of
little
our.
sister too.
Huh?
I thought you were saying Jared's your little sister
Well,
too.
he's being a bitch, I guess he is. My
So
little
you took a
sister
trip to
Leah took a
Ireland.
trip to Ireland with about 50 of our clan over here. And it was honestly a magical experience, because how often can you say you don't just get to go to another country for a wedding and to vacation, but you get to drag along most of your family. So it was one of those experiences that everyone enjoyed themselves. We got to experience the hospitality and the culture of the Irish, which is just fantastic, barns to none. The 2 hardest parts of the year we had to put our dog Burley down as well right before we left for Ireland, and that he was our first. He and his bonded paired sister Scarlett, who we still have, but they were our first dogs. We still have 2 cats from when Ashley was in veterinary school that we rescued, and then we adopted these 2 literally the weekend prior to the COVID shutdown in 2020.
Oh, wow.
So they're our COVID dogs, and that was difficult because the last dog that I had was my childhood dog back when he passed when I was maybe 11 years old or so. And then this has been a hard year mentally. I've struggled with clinical depression for 20 years. This is the worst year, and I think it was a lot of factors to do with the struggles with employment, struggles with myself, and just feeling like what good am I? What is my worth? What can I bring to the world, while feeling very small and insignificant, and the world problems kind of coming in. And truthfully, Scott, like I'm not saying this just because we're on the podcast, but the podcast has become a source of great joy for me, for a creative element, the fact that I get to hang out with such fucking awesome people on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis, that I, even though I don't feel like I know very much about bourbon still, like getting to try things that would be way outside of my everyday peripheral to be able to afford or to analyze, or just if it's different when you drink by yourself versus
Absolutely.
when you're plugged in and you're drinking among comrades and you're experiencing what good bourbon
Am I
is all
Russian
about.
now? I
you
didn't know it. Did I become Russian?
Well, yes, comrade. Professor X, there is, I believe, Colossus. What the fuck is Jared doing behind my
You
back?
don't want to know. Trust me. You do not want to know.
Is Morgan going to be ashamed of him?
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure that one's par for the course. No offense.
About to say it's
So anyway.
very, very, very close to Fiddler on the Roof-esque stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
So, I thank you, Scott, for bringing all of us together. This year.
I appreciate you guys. Like I said, I mean, I think that's for me. It's been a great year just in general because I've been able to bring more people into the group, more people into the family. I've had more conversations with more people over this year probably than any other year with Bourbon Barrel Talk, and it's mainly because of the fact that I have met you guys and I met the Brocks and and I was able to bring more people in to have more of a centralized thing. Like I said, my house has been torn apart since probably March, like different construction projects, different things like that.
Are you done yet? Like, what's the status of these
things?
So,
honest to goodness, like we are literally waiting on the plumber to come in and change out the valves. So they sent us the showers themselves everything's in place except for we're still waiting for the plumber to come back because he's got to put in the 2 sink the sink spigots, sink faucets. There we go. And for some strange reason, I don't know what happened, but the mixing switches on our shower heads, it's either hot or cold. It will not mix.
Oh.
So the mixer was faulty, so we had to order new mixers. So they just came in. So we're waiting for the plumber to show up to put in the faucets in the sink, which the sinks are all installed. Everything's there. And the shower's all ready to go, but the mixing valve is not. So it's either you take a cold ass shower or you scold your balls off. Like there's no in between. Like it's a cold shower, roasting yourself. So there's nothing in between.
I'm about to say you should have about 30 seconds to a minute of turning on the hot water as it's warming up. That you have about that small window.
I could probably take a shower like that. My wife could not. For one, I don't mind rinsing off in cold water. For me, it almost wakes you up and gives you kind of that thought process.
It's that blood flowing.
It does. It gets the blood flowing.
Something like that.
But yeah, it's been crazy. But yeah, I mean, we remodeled 2 bathrooms, all of our hardwood floors, part of our basement, all this year. It's just been just tearing shit up left and right, putting stuff back together. So
I know you keep mentioning that we're going to have a recording at your house.
We are definitely.
Yes.
It should be literally any day now at this point.
Come 2023, we'll be at Scott's house.
You definitely be at my house. And I'm ashamed, because I don't drink that much by myself.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. I've polished off so many bottles that, literally right now, I've probably only got about 30 bottles open. I started going through and counting and stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I only have 20 or 30 bottles that are open right now. So it's gonna be fun when I have I'm gonna crack some shit. We're gonna have some fun.
Oh yeah,
there's gonna be some stupid drunken tomfoolery. So the Knicks the Brocks will have to get a sitter when they come over because
probably so.
Barbara's not gonna want to miss those.
Hell no. Where's Morgan when you need her?
We're gonna have some tomfoolery going on for sure.
Preferably on a weekend so I can actually make it to work on Monday.
Yeah, we probably should do maybe a Saturday afternoon.
Saturday marathon. But what I was going to say is, John was bringing up a good point. Is that it's one of those things of going. I've never been one to much drink alone. It's one of those things I've always led down a bad path.
Right.
And so it's been very nice to have my wife along, Barbara, with me, along this path and journey that I've been with a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
Because I've been right there with her. And so, we might have 1 or 2 a night, but we'll sit there and talk about it and say, ooh, this is really good. What are you getting? Stuff like that. Even, some of the stuff that we talk about on this podcast.
Yeah.
Her and I will just banter back and forth and say, ooh, you got to try this.
Yeah. And it's, and then I think for me, that is a very unique opportunity for us because there are a lot of spouses that one drinks and the other doesn't, and then there are some that both drink, and then there are some that neither drink, and it's interesting to be able to find the balance that Nick and I can have where we can enjoy a bourbon or 2 a night and really understand the different complexities and the different flavors and understand that each of us can have their own thoughts on it.
Yep.
But still come back together and go, you know what? That's, even though I don't know what you're tasting and what he's tasting, we can still come together on that one bourbon.
There's fellowship involved with that. There's
Absolutely.
a camaraderie and a fellowship that definitely comes along with being able to have those pours and have that conversation.
Yeah.
And you're not always going to agree. That to me, that's what I
Absolutely
love
not.
about bourbon too, is that you can agree to disagree. You can have somebody can have a totally different flavor profile on something that I'm drinking. I'm like, dude, I get cherry, and they're like, dude, I don't get cherry at all. And I'm like, really, you don't
Right.
get cherry? And and you can debate it, but it's all friendly banter, right? Like nobody's getting butthurt about it. Like nobody's getting all in their feelings journal because you didn't get their tasting notes. You know,
We're definitely going to go back to my favorite little motto, and I know I've said it 40,000 times on this podcast, but to each their own.
right? Yeah, 100% for sure.
I guess the question to maybe end the show tonight would be for you, Scott. What is your hope for Bourbon Barrel Talk for 2023?
So 2023. So for me, I look at that from a holistic point of view. I want to get Josh back on the show a lot more.
Yeah.
Just because he switched jobs this year, I switched jobs this year, so he's mainly been focused on that piece. I know that he's been super, super busy and intent on trying to build a new company. I mean, so there's a lot of work and a lot of stuff that goes along with that. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to get Josh on here more often because Josh he's become one of my closest friends. I mean, just in all honesty, I mean, we've only known each other for about 4 years now or 5 years, and like we've just become really, really close. I mean, over that time frame. The other big thing is I'd really like to dive into some really, really maybe reviewing interviews, like going back and touching people that I talked to the first year that I did it. You know, like maybe going back to Spirits of French Lick, maybe going back to New Riff, maybe go back and talk to Jay and see what his perspective on New Riff is from when they started. Because when I first did this, when I did the episode, I mean, some of their stuff was barely turning 3 and 4 years old. Like I mean, it was just old enough.
Yeah.
So I'd like to go back and interview some of those people if possible.
Okay.
And just get a little bit more perspective on, hey, it's been 3 years down the road, soon to be 4 years for me since we started this thing. What's changed? What's different?
Yeah.
And just kind of get that perspective from folks. Also, I'd like to do a few more. Barrel picks. I'd like to do a couple of Jared barrel picks. I think that would be a lot of fun. And another big thing I'd like to do is I'd like to highlight local businesses that are tied to the bourbon field, whether it be a liquor store or a bar or things like that are here locally, and interview some of them and talk to them about, what's their favorite cocktail? How did they come up with these cocktails? If you in the liquor business, what's it like having to deal with distributorships and allocations, and how does that make you feel? Like I'd like to get their perspective on these type of things. Like I know how I feel about it, and I know how you guys feel about it because we've talked about it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily know how they feel about it. Okay. And I don't think people in general, if they really talk to a store owner per se, what's their perspective behind it? Like, does it really frustrate them as much as it frustrates us? Is it one of those things that, XYZ, I feel like the days of a mom and pop's store are gone. Like, I think that it's died out. Like, I think if you don't own 2 to 5 stores, I think you're going to be snuffed out in the long run because you're not going to have any binding power.
Right.
Okay.
So those are the things I'd like to see. I'd like to just have some different conversations, different things, rehash some great conversations that I had. Spirits of French Lick is one that I really, really, and the funny thing is I could probably call Alan tomorrow and he'd be like, yes, come on up, let's go, let's have a conversation. But it's one of those funny things that I don't know if it would be the same without Jolie, because Jolie left there, but Jolie's now with Padoka, and I think they just opened a spirits thing in Padoka.
A winery.
Well, there's a winery, but I think they're doing spirits too.
Oh, see, I haven't heard about that.
So I think they're doing brandy, and I think they're going to do bourbon. So like that's the thing. So like there's lots of things that are going on. I'm really looking forward to, and I want to do another tournament of 64 bourbons. I want to sit down with a group and really hash out what was the 64 best bourbons, and then let the Bourbon Barrel Talk community vote on it. Every round, and then we talk about why we think they picked that bourbon. And because I had a really good time with that a couple of years ago, and I'm hoping I can get a neat sponsor to come sponsor that, and maybe we give out some cool prizes and different things like that, just to have some fun with it. So there's lots of things I'd like to do.
Where are we on the merchandise route? I think that our viewers across the world would really appreciate some Bourbon Barrel Talk merch.
I'd have to spend a lot of money on a couple of different things in order to get to that point. And not that I'm not willing to do it. It's just one of those things that I just really haven't taken the time to really look to see what those things cost or anything like that. But I don't know.
See the
it's
cost
definitely
benefit
something,
ratio. Of
it's not
doing
even.
something
It's,
like that.
Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to lose money on anything. Right? Like,
Right.
I'm not looking to make money, but I don't want to lose money. I don't want to.
No one does.
So like, what's inventory look like in that situation? Like, do I order 30 smalls, 30 mediums, 30 larges, or do I order all large and extra large and 2 and 3X? Because I feel like most people that drink bourbon are kind of burly dudes. I mean, what do you do in those situations?
Maybe we should open that up to our viewers.
Ooh, that might not be a bad idea.
To see what kind
poll.
of
Not many viewers out there, and if they are, they've watched one episode and they've watched me talk and watched my little voice bounce on YouTube.
They view the itinerary, the breakdown of the episodes on Spotify, Pandora.
Yeah.
So,
Well, would that be something, a little bit more visual for our listeners?
Yep. I know Nick brought up challenge coins. That's something I've been looking into since he mentioned it. They are expensive.
What is a challenge coin? Break that down.
So
for
a
me.
challenge coin
I've heard that a
is,
few times.
so they originally started out with like firefighting or in military or police, different things like that, where basically if you saw somebody go kind of above and beyond the job of duties or the expectation of what it was to do their job, you basically gave them a challenge coin stating, hey, I think you did a fantastic job.
Okay.
From a bourbon aspect, I could see where you could be like, hey, you dropped some knowledge, or you dropped some, a great piece of conversation about bourbon or bourbon related things, and I really appreciate what you did. Here's this. That's kind of the way I envision it. I don't know if that's what you.
That's
you had
exactly
it,
what I
Nick?
did. You're at a bar, you're having a conversation with either the bartender, you're having somebody sitting else at the bar, having a great conversation about bourbon, and that something comes up, they give a great opinion on something or some good insight, and then you kind of present them with that challenge coin, saying, "Hey, you did a great job, thank you. Here you go." And if and then kind of tell them about this challenge coin. If you come up across somebody else who drops some knowledge that you see that's impressive, pass it on.
Right.
Okay.
The Bourbon Barrel Talk challenge coin.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Have our logo on it and, whatever.
Yeah.
But so
Love it.
I love the idea of it. But the problem is like you have to order like 200, 300, 400, 500 before they get to be semi-reasonable.
Yeah.
So that's that's really what it boils down to is like like I said, I don't want to lose money. I don't want to order 500 and sell 100, and then I'm like, well, what am I going to do with
Right.
400 of these things? Because
Right.
you really never know. I mean, I give them out like hotcakes, but then again, it's just me giving out my money.
Right.
Right.
But what that does is that you could have your logo, you could have your website or something like that to find it, and then hopefully that would help.
Honestly,
all
that's
your
another
viewership.
big thing I would like to do. I would like for somebody that knows something about website design or something about anything to that piece to where they would go and just kind of mess with my website a little bit, because we've got it. It's up and running. I think it's through like Squarespace.
I'm about to say, if you said MySpace or something like that, I would laugh at you.
Yeah, no, it's like Squarespace or something like that.
Squarespace.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that
Okay.
they're kind of, but it's. I mean, from what I understand, it's super easy. My buddy Steve set it up for me originally. He's an engineer. He just wanted to learn how to build a website, so he literally bought this little thing, set it up, and then literally just started plugging things in there. But I literally, like, our website still has our original logo. Like, it doesn't have the new logo on there. It has the barrels that we took a picture from when we were in a rick house, and we put Bourbon Barrel Talk the name across it. Like, that's what it is. Like, if you look
Okay.
at it, it's shit. Like, we've not done anything with it. We've talked about doing something with it. Matter of fact, Steve was going to have one of his buddies work on it because he wanted to learn something about it. I'm like, fine, give him the name, give him the password, just go have fun, like that type of thing. It was one of those aspects, and then never anything happened to it. So that's one other thing I would like to see. I would like to see somebody that has an interest in that they would want to mess with it and play with it, because I'd like to honestly turn it into where it would be like a informational place. Like, you go to it and like it would be a link to all the different distilleries in Kentucky and Indiana. It would be, exactly. It would be a link to, looking at your favorite, like, if you wanted to go in a store, like a tour, like, you could click on Buffalo Trace and then, like, you could book a tour right from our website, like
Oh,
that.
that'd be cool.
That would be just a nice thing for people to be able to, like, one-stop shop. Like, you go to Bourbon Barrel Talk and you can do anything that you want to do.
Kind of a bourbon
related.
hub
It's like
of
a
a
bourbon
website.
hub.
Yeah. Okay.
I love that.
And then like even maybe talk to Drizzly and be like, hey, dude, you want us to drop your link in there? Like, if you want to order bourbon, go to Drizzly or go to Silbach or I don't know what it looks like. I'm just saying that's what I kind of envisioned with it originally. And like, I think literally now it just shows 200 episodes of the most recent episodes, or 150 or whatever the number is that it'll show, and then that's it. Like, and it's got like the old original, I think, Terminus 64 information on there, like stuff like that that's on there. Just hasn't been updated in a long time. So
We can help you with that. I got some friends.
We've got some eager eyes looking at you right now, Scott.
So it's one of those things. Those are things that I would like to do, but haven't really messed with it. You know, like I said, it would be nice and neat if we could be able to do those things. But
Yeah.
Absolutely.
anything else?
Let's all, each of us, give a little New Year's toast to our listeners.
New Year's toast. All right, to the fans, to the friends.
To those incoming that don't know that they enjoy bourbon yet.
There you go. To anybody that likes bourbon, loves bourbon, or to people that are going to newly discover bourbon.
Absolutely.
Cheers to you. Cheers to the folks out there at home, and cheers to the Bourbon Barrel Talk family. Cheers.
Absolutely. Cheers.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Prost.
And that's our episode of Bourbon Barrel Talk. If you want to find us on Instagram, Facebook, or the Twitter, you can do that. You can also email us at bourbonbarreltalk@gmail.com. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. You can find us every Sunday when we drop those episodes. This is Scott, Jon, Jared, Barbara, and Nick signing off. Peace.
Peace out.